Hello, welcome to Glasgow Queen Street, and we're once again in the wonderful Class 380, and we're going to take on a run through to Edinburgh Waverley now. So let's get the train set up. AWS is well and truly on. I'll put nightlight just to get us through the tunnels. I'm truly loving this Class 380, I have to say. It's been a great unit to ride. I thought this was a lovely opportunity to ride on a little bit faster than on the Cathcart Circle, and in the very early days of the 380s they were indeed used on this newly electrified line before the 385s came into being. We might see the odd 385 on our run, and there's one or two other units as well. This is a scenario from Creators Club, and just to double check on where we're stopping at, it's Croy, Falkirk High, Polmont, Linlithgow, Haymarket and Edinburgh Waverley, and it should be a run of about 50 minutes or thereabouts. So we should be just about ready to go. Let's get the doors locked. It would help if we put ourselves into forward. A steep climb actually out of Glasgow Queen Street, and I don't know exactly what sort of other units and stock we'll see on this run. Hopefully we'll see a little bit. It'd be lovely to see a full timetable, I think, with the 380. That was a 170, I think, entering platforms into Glasgow Queen Street, probably waiting for us to get clear so that he could get some clearance. Croy is our first stop. A beautiful summer's morning by the looks of things. Really is a fabulous unit to drive. Very much enjoying this since it's come out. I still haven't properly explored all of the Cathcart Circle yet. Never really been able to get on with the 385. I mean, in theory it should be a lovely unit to drive, something that's brand new and up to scratch, but even with the sound mod, and there's some brilliant sound mods on the Train Sim community website, but it just doesn't feel particularly nice to drive. Whereas this thing is absolutely perfect. Past the depots, not too much by way of stop, perhaps they're all out in service at this time. We are in a 6-car unit. Quite like this enclosed bit, you know, you could be in the Rockies or something. It's quite rugged at times. And we've got 85 miles an hour now, and then we're very shortly up to 100 miles an hour, and it is a pretty fast service. I think it's probably the quickest of the possible routes between Glasgow and Edinburgh Waverley. You can get from Glasgow Central to Edinburgh Waverley. And you would go potentially via Carstairs. There are services that run like that. But this is a really fast and frequent and regular service, and you go back to the introduction of push-pull trains, I think with the Class 27s originally, and then of course we had the 47-7s with the DBSO on the back. More recently, the 170s. And then electrification, initially with these 380s and 365s. Came in. Mustn't get too carried away with the speed. I mean, I do quite like the 385 on Train Sim Classic, and there's a nice little mod done on Alan Thompson Sim that brings that up to scratch and makes it an enjoyable drive. And I did a video a few months ago now of Edinburgh Waverley to Glasgow Queen Street on Train Sim Classic, and really enjoyed that. Well, there's a distinctly autumnal feel about the day, isn't there, when you can see the colour on the trees. Really must get into having a go at doing a bit of scenario creating. I don't think it's that complicated either, and I know there's a bit limited. It's a bit limited really in terms of what you can put into it. Just finding the time to do these things, in all honesty. Keep an eye on Croy, which is only 3 miles away now, so that'll be on us before we know it. But I do kind of feel as though I've not really got the use out of this add-on since it came out. I think it was January, not this year, but January last year, so it must have been Train Sim World 3 at the time, so could do with a little bit of polishing. And there was a distinct feeling straight away that it was a little bit rushed. I mean, they have done a bit of work. I think it was Rivet Games who brought this out to improve it, but the one thing they did promise with the 385 was that they would, well, they didn't promise, but they said they would hopefully at some point get authentic sounds and try and improve on that, but I don't think they've ever delivered on that. I guess other things have got in the way. That was a 380. In two minds really. I saw a couple of scenarios on the Creators Club heading in this direction, and I've chosen this one, so we'll see how it works out. You do have to be a tad careful with these kind of high-speed runs with reasonably frequent stops, because they can come up on you pretty quickly. I mean, when you're kind of going along the Cathcart Circle at 30-40 mile an hour, you can kind of slam on the brakes and you're more or less okay, even visually looking for the platform. But when you're going at speed, you really need to know where the stations actually are. Of course, you get no visual clues from the signals. And here we are coming into Croy, our first stop. Stations are all nicely represented. I think the catenary is pretty decent, the scenery is not too bad. I'd say it just hasn't had a lot of love since it's come out, I don't think. Quite a few people getting off at Croy. It's really nicely represented, and I love the weathering. I mean, there are just some trains that I've bought and downloaded and then used once and not used for a long time, and then there's others that you kind of keep coming back to, and hopefully this belongs in the category of one that you'll come back to quite a bit. So Falkirk High is next, and the stations in this section come on pretty thick and fast. It does rather take off like a rocket. Perhaps not quite so much as the 385. Of course, the 380 came out a good few years previously. Totally recall if I downloaded a mod from the Train Sim community website and whether this is currently it. You sort of lose track of these things. The kind of distant, slightly distant, hazy sort of autumnal morning that we have here. And if you rode on this route, and I say if you rode on it, if you ride on this route and you can remember the 380s and their brief period before the 385s were introduced, do you prefer the 380s or do you prefer the 385s now? Let me know in the comments. Always interested. It's always fascinating to hear from people who regularly use the line. I mean, I've been on it a couple of times in my life, but if you use it regularly every day, probably don't want to be reminded about it too much. Chance to stretch the legs on this 380. I mean, certainly on the Cathcart Circle you feel, apart from the odd few bits and pieces here and there, that you're restricted to about 40 mile an hour at the time. There's a 170, so you get the impression we're in that transitionary period where the 380s had just been introduced, but it was still by and large a diesel operated service. Now, I don't know whether the neutral sections actually work on this Glasgow Edinburgh route or with the 380. To observe it anyway. I probably missed a few of the other ones previously though. Quite honestly, I mean, the route came out years ago for Train Sim Classic, and in its original form, I must admit, I was a bit bored by it. But this is really nice. Totally sure of the full requirements for this scenario. I mean, it loaded up readily enough. It'd be lovely to see the odd Azuma or two, but I'm not sure whether we will get to see them. Love to see a full timetable upgraded for this route, and kind of add in the option of being able to do it as a 380 as opposed to the 385. I mean, even the cab view is just better. And again, I don't know whether it's just to do with the positioning and the way it loads in. I know you can alter the field of view and stuff, but it just doesn't feel even remotely right. This is a lovely unit to drive. Coming in a little bit speedily, but we should be absolutely okay. Gets us into the platform. You're trying to get that feeling of sort of just after rush hour. So Polmont is next. There's a little kind of a section here of these stations, and then Linlithgow, where it just feels as though there's hardly any gap between them, and then suddenly, I think after Linlithgow, we have quite a long distance before we get to Haymarket, and of course we are basically into Edinburgh. Virtual impossibility that you'd see a 380 nowadays on the Glasgow Edinburgh run. I don't know whether they might see occasional the light of day here, but I don't know. I must confess, quite tempted to buy the Video 125 run because I can't find a YouTube video from the cab view for free. The Video 125, I think it's got a couple of versions of the run as well. There's the one via Shots, I want to say. As you can see, we have to be a bit careful here because Polmont is fast approaching us. love the track joint sounds on this thing. Well, we've got a onrush of passengers here. Seem to be heading towards the middle of the back of the train anyway. I mean, we are a 6-car unit, so there's plenty of room. Worth just having a little bit of a wander. Let me see if there's too many. Oh, we've got a few up here, yeah. Yeah. Good to see that display. Not sure you should see the light in the background there. It's okay there. Is it just supposed to be a reflection? Not sure. I know it's an old fascination, but wouldn't it be good if you could actually just open that toilet door? Wow, we are quite busy. Obviously I don't know about the back unit. Actually, that's a good point. I mean, if you go through there... Yeah, of course, because the cab's closed off, you can, of course, go through to the other unit. Yeah, we're pretty full through out there, actually. To see that the doors close themselves behind you, pretty much. Well, actually, I know what we need to do. I know what we've never done. No. Right, we should... No, let's get back in the seat. Yeah, what we should have done, actually... It's closed off there, and brought that in. That's how we should be. Got the rail treatment train there. It's good to see. I mean, I never did hear absolutely whether Dovetail Games did record these sounds from the 380 itself, but certainly sounds like it. Certainly sounds like a D0. So Linlithgow next. I think because this is such an old route, I don't think we've even got the Todd landscaping or whatever it's called. I think it's called Todd, isn't it? Hoping when we do get to Edinburgh Waverley that there might be a little bit of traction in there, but I don't know. Not my scenario, and it's the first time I've run it, but it's part of the excitement. Really waiting for the day when we get kind of a really busy section of either the West Coast main line or the East Coast main line. Say something out of Euston or King's Cross. We're speeding a bit there. It's actually 90 there. And we're very quickly back up to 100, but again we're conscious of the fact that Linlithgow is coming up. I'm loving any of the videos where you have real train drivers on real trains that are kind of giving you the clue as to some of these runs. It's great to see the LNER driver recently having a go at Train Sim World on the Zoomer and comparing it to the real life. I think there were some bits that she thought was pretty good, and there were some bits that she kind of thought weren't realistic, which is pretty much what you'd expect, I suppose. Do none of these passengers know what the yellow line means? Goodness sake. Sure, that's not the case for any ScotRail services. I'm sure the passengers in Scotland know exactly what the yellow line means. Good to see like the trees there sort of authentically blowing around a little bit. Just feels pretty nice with the scenery. Just, you know, I'm sure it is fairly rugged and rural, but there's just enough to give you a nice impression, I think. I like the catenary modelling as well. How are we doing for time? Locked doors, it says. Maybe slight disadvantage of not kind of it being a proper timetable mode. We don't know whether we are on time or we're behind time, but we won't worry too much about that. So this is the kind of bit that I meant really, 15 miles now to Haymarket, which of course is very much, you feel once you get to Haymarket that you've reached the edge of the city centre. I mean, I think in actual fact the number of LNER Zoomer services that go from Edinburgh Waverley through to Glasgow Central has diminished, and I think they're talking about reducing them even more. In all fairness, the sort of the Azumas that occupy the other part of the platform and then go straight down the East Coast main line is kind of at the other end of Edinburgh Waverley anyway. Still more ScotRail stuff to come out in the not too distant future. We got the 158 now. It's perfectly possible to use the 158 that we've already got from Skyhook, and there's a reskin of the Saltire ScotRail livery which you can download, and that's nice. But the one that's coming out in a couple of weeks will have a slightly modified cab, it'll have the proper ScotRail interior, and again that'll add a bit more to the 5-circle route. It'd be nice when they put in the Leven branch as well, which has been recently opened, and they sort of made that commitment that yes, it's only been out in real life a matter of weeks, but they're going to get it into the train game as quickly as possible, so hopefully that'll be, I suppose you can think maybe over the course of the summer. It's kind of ironic that this Class 380 coming out made me want to have a run on this line again, because I kind of lost interest with it, but it's breathed new life into it for me. Really should notice these 99-mile speed restrictions coming in a bit quicker. When you kind of get a red mark on it, you feel as though, yep, I've really overdone it. We've got an 80 coming up, so we'll be a bit better with that one, I think. Sometimes the graphics, the way they jump about, is a little bit irritating. I mean, I was reading a bit of speculation about Train Sim World 5, which you kind of expect is going to be announced in the not too distant future. Good to see a freight working there as well. We've seen a few Class 66s, but the suggestion was that maybe, and again it's only pure speculation on people's parts, but we might get the Unreal Engine version 5, and I think the suggestion is that'll be a completely new game, but surely they have to try and amalgamate the existing routes. It can't be start again, surely. What everybody would love to see is longer routes. I mean, the strange thing is this kind of concept of about an hour's drive often fits in quite nicely. You know, you got a bit of time. Be good if the save worked properly. I think there is a save back in it again. I've not tried it again, but I know even on Train Sim Classic it's not ideal because it struggles to kind of put you back into the same situation. You go back to the old Microsoft Train Simulator days and it kind of worked, and you know, many a time I'd save something and then come back to it. And we will get the tram lines as we come towards Edinburgh Waverley. Also go past the turning for the 5 circle route. Not sure if we'll see any trams on this. Of course, if you put it into timetable mode, you would do, or you can do, but hit and miss sometimes. Off that power a little bit because we are very slightly on a downhill gradient. Try and keep roughly within the 100 miles an hour. There's another 170. And is that, I'm right in saying that's kind of the, is it Edinburgh Gateway, something like that? Certainly that's the first point at which you could potentially get off a ScotRail service and then get onto a tram. And of course the difference is that if you get on a tram, you can go right into Princes Street and really get into the city centre. And pretty soon be seeing the depot. Just before Haymarket, we'll see Murrayfield Rugby Stadium as well. I think I'm right in saying we now have the 5 circle line alongside us. Not sure I've totally explored that completely. The trouble is there's been so many add-ons that have come out. I mean, okay, there hasn't been that many in the last few weeks, but sometimes you don't actually properly find the time to completely exhaust these pieces of DLC. To see the distant scenery in the background as well. I think it's pretty decent. I think it's got bad reviews sometimes, this route. Here's Murrayfield, which I presume is exactly the same as it is on the 5 circle. We need to be getting down to 40. Maybe I've done it a little bit too hastily. As we come towards the platforms at Haymarket, and we are not too far away from Journey's End. I would kind of suggest to anybody that they have a look at Creators Club. There's some great scenarios on there. Just adds to the interest sometimes. I mean, it might not be perfect, but there are times when you look at Train Sim World and you think looks really, really good. I mean, perhaps you could moan a little bit about the texture on the platforms. It looks a little bit too clean and precise. Actually, it seems we should still be having the doors unlocked. We still should be loading passengers. Now we can close them. Nothing like confusing your passengers, is there? I mean, this is a fascinating bit, not so much the tunnel bit, but when we emerge out into you've kind of got the gardens on one side, you've got Edinburgh Castle on the other, and for my money, Edinburgh Waverley, one of the great stations in the world. Certainly has plenty of character about it. I think there was a campaign, well, there was an attempt by British Rail at one point to drop the Waverley name to it, and there was a great campaign to keep it. Very glad that people cared about that. It will always be Edinburgh Waverley. Not a great fan of the glaring signals. I think that was not one of Rivet's finest ideas. Probably does need a little bit of an upgrade in some ways, this route now, even though it's only a year and a half old. Didn't spot that 20. There you have it, the Edinburgh Castle there, and then on the other side you have the gardens and the great city of Edinburgh. We're rather shrouding ourselves in trees though, aren't we? We are signalled into platform 9. I think we've got a straight run in. big hotel, the North British Hotel, I think. And yeah, there's plenty of traction in Edinburgh. It's a bit of a disappointing platform to come into though, isn't it? Would have been nice to have been right in the heart of the station. This one's a bit boring. But never mind. I'm looking forward to some sort of mod where we can use this 380 on this route a bit more like part and parcel of the game. I mean, you can substitute it in. Maybe that's an idea to do at some point. There is a mod to do that. Actually, we must just go a little bit farther down, just make sure. I think we've got all of the train in the platform. It's long enough anyway, isn't it? So there we have it. Just see if we can get a little bit of a better view. It's kind of over the sky really, isn't it? Over the roofs of the station. We're a little bit outside it, but never mind. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed it. And if you've enjoyed the video and you feel wishing to like and subscribe, I certainly won't have any objections. And thanks very much as ever for watching. And until the next video, and until next time, it's goodbye.